Stay at Work Kentucky presents Assistive Technology and Universal Design in the Workplace, featuring Christina Espinosa.
My name is Christina Espinosa, and I have worked at the Human Development Institute at UK since 2007. I'm currently the Division Director of Community Education, but a lot of my work has largely focused around assistive technology, universal design, and modifications to the built environment. So I'd say most simply, universal design is the idea of creating spaces, devices, aids, materials, just so that the most number of people can use it. It was developed as this idea of design that's intended to be accessible by the broadest array of people without requiring any kind of changes or adaptations or specialized features or designs. But really it's thinking in terms of making things simple, flexible, and efficient. It's a win-win-win all across the board because it truly does benefit all of us. When I think about computing, having multiple ways that someone can access technology, right? So that would mean computers that have a keyboard, different types of keyboards, a touch screen, a way to access it with voice control, or even using a stylus or other tool like that. So that would support people with different kinds of fine motor or motor disabilities, people with just different work styles. I think about adjusting policies, and that costs nothing, and it's kind of an easier thing to accomplish, but we could adjust policy to allow for flexible schedules, having those remote work options. That looks like having hybrid workstations or flexible hours or even compressed work weeks that would benefit working parents or people with neurodivergent abilities, and also folks that have chronic illness and need different times at different times, right? And then additionally, our operating systems of any computing device that is used at any business has hundreds of built-in features now to their operating systems that people just don't realize are there a lot of times. And so that universal design is built into this equipment, but just the training and seeking out the expertise to know how to use that for different people with different needs. Automatic motion sensor doors, right? So that's a classic one. Think about how that feature makes access so much easier for everyone, not just in that ease of access, but also in space efficiency. And it uses space well where you don't have a door that's swinging in and out of a room. Another really common example that is often used when we're thinking of universal design is curb cuts. So I know that they're intentionally added for people with mobility impairments using wheelchairs, but as someone who's also pushed a lot of strollers and even dollies, they're so helpful and useful to make things safer and more easily accessed for a whole lot of different needs and populations. It's really important to critically apply those principles of simplicity, flexibility, and efficiency as an employer, and really examining those things against every detail that's being selected in terms of how we're laying out furniture and arranging a space, not just for our workforce, but also for our customers. For someone with a mobility-related disability, we might look at things like having a height-adjustable desk or using features that are built into the computing operating systems like speech-to-text for typing. For folks with low or no vision, we would think about how to apply screen readers and text-to-speech, or even just using the magnification and high contrast settings that are built into every operating system. There are also a lot of devices that can offer audible feedback in addition to visual feedback. So that would accommodate the needs of people that are both deaf and hard of hearing and people with low vision. People also can use things like real-time captions and transcription to communicate, to participate in meetings, or even the apps and hearing loops that can isolate the voices in a room and minimize background noise for people who are hard of hearing. The pandemic was really interesting. The opportunities for remote work and an availability of that technology to support remote work really grew. I'd say AT played a crucial role in that process. And it is the AT application of live captions and transcription that allows people who are hard of hearing and deaf to participate in virtual meetings. Noise cancellation in those virtual environments turned out to be a pretty big deal, but it also was a really amazing assistive technology support for people with processing disorders, auditory processing disorders or difficulty that can't process as well or receive information with all of that background noise. The post-pandemic remote work can be more inclusive and appeal to a broader section of the workforce just by offering assistive technology that proved beneficial to so many workers through the pandemic and became more accessible and more available and less expensive. There are a lot of resources out there. The first one that comes to mind is the Job Accommodation Network. It's often referred to as JAN. They offer free support on workplace accommodations, on assistive technology solutions. They also serve as a confidential technical assistance resource and can provide employers assistance around the accommodation process, how to implement it within their companies and within their policies, but also on what the Americans with Disabilities Act requires of employers and what it doesn't. So they're a good resource for breaking down a lot of that mythology. On a more local level, every state has an AT Act program that will have assistive technology devices that are available for demonstration, for training opportunities, and for loan. So either employers or employees can find their local AT Act program, and the website for that is the ataporg.org. So it's the Assistive Technology Act Programs Organization.org. And that's where you can locate the center in your state. In Kentucky, it's the catsnet.org, K-A-T-S net.org. Every state voc rehab agency will have a staff of assistive technology providers that are dedicated to helping provide that prescription and implementation of the devices that'll help an individual within their job needs, and can also often help with funding. A manager isn't able to ask a worker if they have a disability, but they can ask any worker, and should ask probably all of their staff, what else they can help provide to ensure success for their workers. But I would suggest that every manager ask every employee what they can do to help support their employee in more easily accomplishing the tasks of that job.
Retain Kentucky is funded by the U.S. Department of Labor and the Social Security Administration under a grant award of $21,600,000 to the Kentucky Office of Employment and Training that will be incrementally provided. 100% of grant funding is from U.S. federal funds. This product does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the U.S. Department of Labor or the Social Security Administration, nor does mention of trade names, commercial products, or organizations imply endorsement by the U.S. government. Please visit us at stayatworkky.org